is special to me. If I'm traveling in that direction by car and my windows are down, the welcoming scent of the salt marsh is always a friendly greeting. I revel in the history there. The old brick buildings, beautiful squares, and towering live oaks with draping Spanish moss. This town was my entry to the South. It was the first city I lived in after moving away from Wisconsin and the frigid temperatures back in 1986. About 20 years after my arrival, I produced a documentary film about this place, about Savannah. It was called Savannah Remembers and focused on 20th century history and the fond memories of those who remembered. One of the many stories I captured revolved around Juliette Gordon Low, the founder of the Girl Scouts. Today we had the opportunity to interview Shannon Browning Mullis, Executive Director of the Juliette Gordon Low Birthplace Museum, to learn more about this wonderful organization and its founder.
So Juliette's born in the house on Halloween in 1860, and of course if you know anything about the American timeline, you know that the Civil War came right after that. Juliette's family were slaveholders, and her father did fight in the Confederate Army, and so that certainly affected her childhood. Her mother, Nellie, was from Chicago, and she had relatives fighting in the Union Army. So it was a very interesting time for the family, and an interesting time in the correspondence between Nellie and Willie as well. So Juliette and her siblings and their mother and their grandmother were here in this house while he was away fighting. We have a lot of interesting stories about that time. Certainly, even though the house is absolutely beautiful and luxurious, they experienced scarcity during that time, like most people in this area did. Food resources and things like that would have been more limited than they were at other times. And then we have all those great stories about when Sherman came to town. Sherman, of course, came to Savannah at the end of the March to the Sea. He set up shop at the Green Meldrum House, and he came to visit Nellie, which I imagine kind of caused a stir. This is the wife of a Confederate officer, but he knew her family. He knew her family in Chicago, and so he came to visit her here, and we have a lot of family anecdotes about Juliette as a toddler interacting with General Sherman. So Juliette's adulthood didn't necessarily turn out exactly like she probably would have anticipated. She always thought that she would marry, she thought she would have children, she thought she would spend her life raising those children, much like she had watched her mother and other family members do. Unfortunately, Juliette and Willie never had children of their own, and by the time he passed away, she was still a young woman. She's in her 40s. At that point, of course, she has considerable wealth, and she kind of looks around and starts to think, what do I do with the rest of my life? Not necessarily what I thought I might have done. And so we know that she experiments before that and after with many art forms. She's a painter, she's a sculptor, she's even a metal worker, which I think people know much less about. We have gates in our garden that she actually smithed, if that is the correct word. And she also travels extensively. She goes to Egypt, she goes to India, she goes to places you don't necessarily imagine women like her visiting. She meets Robert Baden-Powell, who has founded the Boy Scouts, and his sister, Agnes Baden-Powell, who has founded the Girl Guides, which is the sister organization to the Boy Scouts in the UK. She's really taken with the idea. She's taken with them as well. They become lifelong friends. And she agrees to lead 2 Girl Guide patrols, one outside London and one near her estate in Scotland. And that is really where this enthusiasm and these ideas are born, and she feels like we need this in the United States. So Juliette founded Girl Scouts in the United States in 1912, but she founded it as Girl Guides, just like the group was called in the UK. And within 1 year, the girls came back to her and said they did not want to be guides, they wanted to be scouts, just like the boys. And so she changed it. And they became Girl Scouts here, but Girl Guides are still active and healthy in the UK. And in fact, both organizations are part of WAGS, the World Association of Girl Guide and Girl Scouts, which includes those 2 organizations and other organizations all over the world that are part of the Girl Guiding and Girl Scouting community. So the thing I love so much about Juliette is that she used societal norms to disrupt societal norms, which I think is the most brilliant way to go about it. So when Juliette Gordon Low grew up, women were expected to be very active in their homes, in their churches, in social organizations in their community, But leadership is not a word that they would have associated with most women, certainly not one that women aspire to necessarily. So the interesting thing is she founds this organization that is all about leadership, it's about outdoor activity, and she says to upper class Savannah mothers, your girls need to be part of this. And of course they say, why? Why would we want that for our daughters? And so she does the most brilliant thing. She invites them to beautiful, elaborate tea parties. And she uses those social norms and the play into those social norms to convince them to be part of an organization that allows them to break out of those social norms. And I just think it's that ingenuity and creativeness in using what she had, using resources wisely, in the words of Girl Scouts, that really made the organization so successful. Girl Scouts was Juliette Gordon Low's cause. She was not terribly political. She was not an active suffragist. She really believed that girls were the future, and that is where she put all her energy. The cool thing about that is her idea was, it doesn't matter what position girls need to take, it matters that they have the tools to take those positions when they need to. So she focused the organization on strengthening girls, teaching them leadership, teaching them how to make change and advocate for themselves. And that's still what we do today. Girl Scouts isn't a political organization, but we believe in giving girls all the tools they need to change the world and make the communities the best places they can be. I actually think one of the most brilliant things Juliette ever said, and she said it often, was ask the girls. People constantly would come to her and go, should we do this or should we do this? And she'd go, ask the girls. And they'd go, well, maybe this is the best way to do it, or maybe that. And she'd go, ask the girls. That was always her motto, and I think it was brilliant. The girls knew what the girls needed, and they knew what they wanted. I hope we still do that today, because I think the girls still know what they need and what they want. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things about her leadership. She very much was the visionary, she was the figurehead, but she did not micromanage. And of course, Girl Scouts is a federated model. It's made up of 111 councils. And the activities that one might do in Savannah, Georgia are different than the activities you might do in New York City, which are different than the activities you might do in North Dakota. And so really giving that freedom both to the girls to figure out what they need and want, but also to the councils to figure out what makes sense for their communities and populations was part of early Girl Scout ethos. So Juliette Gordon Low is buried at Laurel Grove Cemetery, which is just a few miles from her birthplace here. She's buried in her Girl Scout uniform. And in the pocket of her Girl Scout uniform is a telegram she received from the board of Girl Scouts the day before she died that says, you're not only the first Girl Scout, but the very best Girl Scout of all. And we think that's true.